the autumn of 1997, work was underway in relocating the Oliver family cemetery in northeast Roanoke. The Roanoke Center for Industry and Technology was expanding, and before they could develop this part of what was once the old Monterey plantation, the small cemetery had to be moved. Skeletal remains and the fragments of wooden coffins were prudently removed from the ground and catalogued, and then an interesting discovery was made. A cast-iron coffin emerged from the earth. After a period of short debate, the men grinded off the bolts securing the coffin's lid and reluctantly cracked it open. There lay the remains of Yelverton Oliver, the family patriarch, preserved almost perfectly. Although Yelverton had been deceased for 140 years, his death appeared to have taken place less than a week earlier. Even the flowers laying on his blue shirt had yet to wither. How could Yelverton's remains have been held in a suspended state of decomposition for so many years? Long ago, before the city of Roanoke was here, the Olivers were a respectable family in this wild and sparsely settled corner of Virginia. They lived on the Monterey plantation not far from present-day downtown, in a Greek Revival house that Yelverton built in the 1840s. The old Monterey Golf Club next door derives its name from the plantation, upon whose original tract the golf club sits. Yelverton died suddenly in 1857 at just 49 years of age. He was buried in the family cemetery not far from Monterey, where he would lay undisturbed for a century and a half as the rest of his family gradually joined him over the coming decades. One of science's great ironies is that the same oxygen which sustains us in life also happens to be a driving force behind our decomposition once our lives have finished. This fact was well known to the funeral industry in the 19th century, who developed iron coffins with airtight seals. These coffins were initially marketed as a means of preserving remains for delayed burial or for sealing in infectious disease. Some models even included a reservoir beneath a ventilated false bottom designed to hold denatured alcohol, further enhancing the coffin's ability to preserve. 50 times greater than the cost of a simple pine coffin, iron coffins were primarily available to those of means. Such was the coffin that Yelverton Oliver's remains were buried in. After their exhumation, the Oliver family's remains were taken to a local funeral home and soon after reburied in Mountain View Cemetery in nearby Vinton. A simple stone marks the plot where all 11 family members now rest. The unexpected discovery of Yelverton's remains is rare, but there are other instances of iron coffins being exhumed with surprising contents. In 1969, farmhands digging in Mississippi discovered an iron coffin containing the perfectly preserved remains of a young, unknown woman wearing a red velvet dress. History has since come to remember her as the Lady in Red. In 2011, construction crews in Queens, New York found the remains of Martha Peterson, which were so well preserved more than 160 years after her death that authorities first assumed they had discovered the victim of a recent homicide. And in 2016, a small iron coffin was discovered during a home renovation in San Francisco. Inside, the remains of 2-year-old Edith Howard Cook, who died in 1876, could be seen through the glass lid. She had been left behind after her family was moved from the cemetery they were buried in, and was unknowingly built over. As was the case with Yelverton, little Edith had been preserved perfectly, surrounded by lilacs that were still rich with color. While relocating graves remains controversial for a whole host of valid reasons, exhumation in cases where it is necessary does offer us a unique historical perspective. In rare cases, some of us are even afforded the opportunity to stare directly into the faces of those born hundreds of years ago. Every cemetery is an abstract time capsule that connects us to our past. Sometimes that connection is more profound than we might expect.